as you can tell, it's early in the morning. I got a major case of the bedhead, but I decided to wake up nice and early for you guys so we could do a breakfast sandwich today. It's a French omelette style, which means that we're gonna be scrambling it and then forming it into a shape of an omelette. A piece of brie in the middle, some shallots, brown mushrooms. It's gonna be absolutely delicious. And trust me, you're gonna wanna stay tuned. I never lead you astray. Anyways, my name is Brennan Jones. This is Jones for Flavor. Let's get started. To start off our sandwich, we need some fresh eggs, about 2 to 3 eggs per sandwich, and a glass bowl with thin glass edges to break the eggshells. If the edges are thick, you could end up with more bits of shell than you would like in your eggs, as a thin edge produces a cleaner break. A French omelette is different than the American omelette as it requires constant movement of the eggs at a low heat to kind of create a consistency of scrambled eggs. I'll take my eggs out of the bowl and crack them both into it. And remember, there is no difference between using brown eggs or white, just the shell is different. If you happen to drop a shell into your eggs, by using that same shell you just cracked, you can dip it into the eggs to retrieve it. You'll want to use a fork to blend the yolks and the whites together for 30 seconds, as they both cook at different rates. Combining them together makes sure that it cooks evenly. I'll then add in some salt and some pepper to taste. I'll stir it again for another 30 seconds. The salt actually both flavors the eggs and breaks down the proteins, making it softer. After we've incorporated some air into the mixture and mixed it well, we'll put it off to the side. And now I'll show you how I dice a shallot, by removing both ends, including the core end. Once both ends are removed, you want to remove the crusty outer layer as it's just not edible. Remove as many layers as needed to get to the firm purple flesh of the shallot. To get to it, I like to score a line down the shallot as it makes removing the husk easier. With the purple flesh exposed, I can discard the husk and start dicing my shallot. Usually shallots come in 2 halves that need to be diced separately. To start dicing, I'll first cut some lines down it right above the core, and then I'll cut some lines horizontally with my cutting board into the shallot. With your lines cut, you're then able to start dicing. Once you reach the core, you can then remove it if you like, as it can be bitter. If you'd like smaller pieces, just run your knife through them until you reach the desired size. Make sure you get every last bit of shallot off your knife, as shallots are so damn tasty you'll want to savor every last bite. With that done, I'll transfer my diced shallots into a bowl as I get started on the mushrooms to saute for my filling. I like to go with brown mushrooms over white as they have a little bit more of a bite to them compared to the white mushrooms. I'll cut off the ends of the mushrooms and start slicing them into thin strips. I'm going to cut them in half one more time so that way they're more manageable when I stuff them in my omelette. I'll then get started on cutting my brie cheese. When making an omelette, always use soft cheeses, as they melt easier. For example, your omelette will be way past done by the time your cheddar cheese melts. I like to use brie cheese as it's a soft cheese that doesn't take a lot of heat to melt. Even at room temperature, it starts to stick to my knife. No breakfast sandwich is complete without an English muffin. Usually these come pre-made to separate when you pull them apart. However, if you're having trouble opening it, use a fork and poke holes through the sides of the muffin, and it should come apart easier. I won't be putting these in the toaster, but instead I'll lightly coat the insides with butter and put them in the oven to broil. I'll create a crunchy inside with a soft exterior, and that is exactly what you want with an English muffin. I'll slide these off to the side. With that said, I'll transfer these to an oven pan with a rack so that way I can broil them in a bit. Time to get started on our filling. Just like the French, I'll be using a lot of butter in this episode. To saute my shallots and mushrooms, I'll be using about 2 tablespoons of salted butter on medium-high heat. I'll let the butter brown for a minute before adding my filling. I'll stir it around for a bit just to make sure that butter does not burn. With the butter nice and brown, I'll then add in my mushrooms and shallots and start sauteing. Now, I was a little eager and added in my shallots just a little bit too early, so if you were to do this, cook your mushrooms for about 2 minutes and then add in your shallots, with a total cook time of about 8 minutes. When they look like this, remove off the heat to add for later. Now to get started on our French omelette. And, of course, we're going to need some butter. When making the French omelette, I'd say the smaller the pan size, the better. In this instance, I have an 8-inch pan, and it has to be non-stick. When cooking eggs, always use low to medium-low heat. Using a high heat produces a rubbery egg texture, which is good, but definitely not as good as this. When adding your eggs, constantly stir them as not to create large curds. The smaller the curds, the smoother and creamier the texture. Using a rubber spatula is the best tool for this method. And remember to wipe down the sides so they don't overcook. You'll want to stir until the liquid is solidified and you can form it into any shape you'd like. I'll be forming it into a rectangle to flop it onto itself. First I'll add my cheese as it helps bind the omelette together. And of course I'll add in my filling. Before flopping the omelette onto itself, you must let the bottom of the omelette cook for 2 minutes on low heat. After those 2 minutes, loosen the bottom from the pan, flop the omelette onto itself, and then lightly pat down. Remove from the heat as it's now time to broil the English muffin. And after just a short amount of time, we're done. It takes about half hour, if that. And honestly, you just make an excellent egg sandwich. Perfect start to every morning. Nice and creamy from the brie cheese. And the egg is nice and soft because we went the French omelet style. And honestly, can't wait anymore. This is gonna be so good. Oh yeah. That's probably one of the best egg sandwiches I've ever had. Not even gonna lie about that. Oh, it's so good. And when you go to broil the English McMuffin, you know, the inside is nice and crispy, but then the outside of it is nice and soft. Just what you want. This is honestly so good. Okay, I'm gonna put this down. I'm gonna finish this video, and please, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment down below if you have any further suggestions of what I should make in the future. Anyways, I'll see you on the next one.